As I brought up in my previous video about my top 10 Zelda games, I am a bit of a nerd when it comes to video games. Always has been and always will be. But I do not go along with most of the AAA titles that are also common nowadays. I take the more laid-back and unique experience over the cinematic titles that are more streamlined. Among these games, there are just a few that hit just right, at least for me and my preferences. Oh, as a side note, stay with me here, this will be important later. I am a person who loves order and efficiency, also a big fan of charts and diagrams. In my everyday life, I build up a structure of actions and in what order I need to execute them, just to have a perfect balance between the efficiency of time and results that needs to be achieved. As an example, I am from Germany, and over here we are often using a drying rack instead of a drying machine. And I go mad when my wife wants to help me hanging up the clothes on the rack, because I need to place the bigger pieces first and with a certain spacing between them and no socks between them, and she does it in a sort of chaotic way with no system, at least no system that follows a logic for me, and okay, I got sidetracked here. Call it a bad habit, but for my own sanity, I sometimes need this. Which brings me back to the world of video games. Or to be more precise, one specific video game. One in which I can achieve goals by developing a mathematical system and be creative at the same time. It's pure satisfaction. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick analysis of one of the best games I think there is out there. Satisfactory. I'm going to divide this video in different sections, starting with Satisfactory is an open-world factory builder developed and published by Coffee Stain Studios. Its early access began on March 19, 2019. In the first year after its release, it was only available as an Epic Games Store exclusive. Afterwards, also on Steam. Until its 1.0 release on September 10, 2024, Satisfactory received many major updates. It's heavily influenced by another title of the genre, Factorio. But there are a few mechanics and development decisions which differentiates Satisfactory from it. The open world in Satisfactory is handcrafted by the team, not procedural generated like in Factorio. You also play in first person in the 3D environment. To be more precise, on an alien planet with the memorable name Massage 2 ABB. You start out after picking one of the 4 starting areas of the map. The 4 new players recommended grassy fields, the jack of all trades, rocky desert, the filled with foliage, northern forest, or the rich on resources nodes, dune desert. To pick one of the zones does not exclude the other 3 from the game. You just decide where you want to be first on a new playthrough. The whole world is opened up from the beginning, though there are some areas that are more dangerous and are harder to get to. After deciding where you want to start, you immediately go down in a drop pod and you are welcomed by an AI called Ada and a slideshow that gives you a quick set of instructions of what to do. You are the only worker on Massage 2 ABB for a company named Fixit, and your job is to deprive the planet of its natural resources and to produce items which are transported via the space elevator to a nearby station in the orbit. This whole process is called Project Assembly, and it functions as the main progression system in Satisfactory. More on that later. The story of Satisfactory unfolds by reaching certain milestones in the progression systems implemented in the game. Ada, the AI, will tell you facts about you, your goal, the state in which Earth is right now, and general information about machines, tools, the flora or the fauna. And she does it with an awesome sense of humor. You can really tell that the writers must have had a ton of fun while writing the script for Satisfactory.
Milestone reached. This is not a competition, but other pioneers, such as 83CKY and U531355, had already completed project assembly by this point. Fixit was obviously wrong about you, but perhaps so was I. Inspirational note: will you be the Fixit Employee of the Month? You could be, if you construct, automate, explore and exploit by eliminating all obstacles to efficiency. This isn't just fun, it's contractually mandated, fun.
Besides the constant improvements and further development of your factory, another big part of Satisfactory is exploration. You are naturally driven to explore the map because there are many things to collect, to discover and to scout for. Although beside new resource nodes, all the other stuff is optional. But it will improve your gameplay tremendously. Also, more on that later. Maybe at this point you will ask yourself, why should I play Satisfactory instead of games like Factorio or Dyson Sphere Program? Heck, in Factorio I also have an implemented system which involves a tower defense-like mechanic against the insects. The answer to that is simple. Yes, Factorio and other factory builders are great and you should definitely try out what game is the most fun for you. But to quote myself, Satisfactory is pure satisfaction. At least for me. And this is mostly thanks to the first-person perspective in a three-dimensional world. It opens up a whole new perspective and many ways to build your factory in creative ways that are just not possible in games that ignores the existence of the Z-axis. Which brings me to... there are many genres and even more subgenres in modern game video pop culture. To list them would be impossible for one video, it also would miss the point of it. But nonetheless, I would like you to imagine that there are two big categories in which you can put video games. First off, the streamlined video games in which a story is presented to you by cutscenes, perfectly timed in-game sequences, and a level design which limits your interactions with it. For example, the recently published Resident Evil Requiem. You have a sanatorium in which Grace is trapped, and then you go to Raccoon City where you can play as Leon. But your approach is somehow limited because the game is developed in that way. You will encounter blocked up ways to prevent that you venture out the corridor-like levels. You have a clear set of options on how to approach enemies. Shoot them, sneak up on them, or hide from them. Most AAA story-driven games are like that. Don't get me wrong. For many people this is their idea of a perfect game. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not my cup of tea. The second category is sandbox-like games. The focus of these games is to give you an idea on what you need to achieve, or what you can achieve, and then letting you off the leash. How you approach the game is totally up to you. The best examples would be Minecraft, in which the whole idea is that you set yourself goals to keep you entertained. Or even games like Stardew Valley, where you can approach it in totally different ways. You can try to earn as much money as possible by planting the best crops or having many animals. Or you can go mining all day long. Or befriend each and every villager. To be a sandbox game leaves it up to the player on how the game is experienced. Their creativity and their drive is what makes the game individual. To set goals for yourself is the essence of those games. Satisfactory is, to an extent, one of these games. It mixes the concept of game set goals with the concept of self-set goals. Like I said, your ultimate goal is the completion of Project Assembly. This is achieved through 5 stages of sending parts up the space elevator. Each stage is more difficult to complete because the production chains become more and more complex. To avoid overwhelming the player with each new stage, the developers thought of another progression system which divides each stage in milestones that can be unlocked by also giving a drone some resources. I know this sounds confusing at first, but the way they introduce these two systems is done subtle and with a good portion of satisfaction. At first you have mobile miners that needs to be placed and emptied manually to handcraft some items at the working bench in your hub. These handcrafted items are used to unlock the first milestones, but this is slow and tedious. If only there was a way to automate this whole process. Soon after, the mobile miners will be replaced with your first automatic miners. Then the first constructors. Then you split the belts to improve the efficiency of your production chain. And before you know it, you're sucked into an ever-repeating loop of unlocking new tech and recipes and improving and expanding your factory. This is the fundamental core gameplay of Satisfactory. This is intended. But how are self-set goals relevant in this loop? Well, to answer this question, you first have to ask yourself, how do I approach building in this environment? Do I want to build a spaghetti-like factory with belts all over the place? Do I want to build little factories, each dedicated to one specific item? Do I want to build a so-called mega factory, which produces every single item in the game? Do I want to enclose every production line, or should it be exposed to the sky? Do I want to stay with conveyor belts as my main source of item transportation? Or do I want to use trucks to transport items, or even build a whole train network for it? Do I want to overclock all my production chains and thereby build fewer machines, but the cost for that is an increase of power consumption? Do I want to use foundations to build upon, or do I want to... Actually, you know what? Yeah, you should. Use foundations as soon as possible and thank me later. How you approach your factory is totally up to you. There is an optional system in the game where you can sync items. Each item has a specific value, and by shredding them you earn tickets. These tickets are used in the Awesome Shop, where you can unlock many handy things like different type of foundations, walls and roofs, fences and other decor items, useful build options like the conveyor floor hole or pipe wall hole, and many, many more. This system is best built up as an overflow system, where all the parts that are too much for your storage containers or your production chains will automatically be transported via smart splitter into an awesome sink. This will ensure that your production never stops and nothing is wasted. You will need as much of these points as possible, because the more tickets you get, the more points you'll spend for your next ticket. This will get expensive real fast. This is optional. You don't have to buy a single thing out of the shop, but it's too useful to ignore. Another progression system implemented in the game is the MAM. It's mostly for gameplay improvements. For example, in the MAM you can unlock the Blade Runners, a piece of equipment that lets you run faster and jump higher. So to say, an overall improvement to your game. Totally optional and hidden behind a progressive tree. Also, the game has a brilliant approach for limiting you in the speed in which you expand, and it's this sound. When you play Satisfactory for the first time, you will hear this sound many times. It indicates that your power generation does not quite cover the power consumption. There are 4 main options when it comes to building up a good power supply for your factory. At first, biomass generators, then coal generators, then fuel generators, and finally nuclear power plants. Each one of these is more powerful but also more complex than the previous one. You start with biomass and later you unlock coal, then oil, then nuclear power. But I tell you, nothing is more satisfying than building multiple working nuclear power plants. It's this kind of project that you set up for yourself that will eat up many hours of your free time, and you won't even be mad about it. No game set goal tells you that you need to build train tracks for the transport. No marker on the map says build your factory at this spot. No one will tell you how much power generators you are allowed to or need to build. No game rule says that you can't decorate your factories and using lights to illuminate it just right. And no one will say that you probably will write down everything you need to produce in an Excel sheet just to have an overview of your next production chain. Satisfactory gives you all the tools you need to make it your game. You just need to explore the game to be aware that they exist. Oh, and speaking of Excel sheets, Satisfactory is a game where your factory needs to be producing. But the way it's doing it is up to you, which is building up on the idea of freedom and sandbox game design. When you first start a playthrough, you will more than likely hit a specific barrier where you will lose the overview of your production lines. So at this point, most people will proceed in one of 3 ways. First up, continue their playthrough by progressing to new milestones. But this will often result in bottlenecks of items that will exponentially grow up to the point where an optimal production is just not possible anymore. The second way would be checking their existing production lines and try to fix certain bottlenecks by adding or overclocking some machines. This will apparently fix the problem for the moment, but the game is getting more and more complex with every new milestone. So you will eventually create a big chaos factory that is so confusing that it becomes very hard to keep track of your productions. Or, as the last possible approach, delete every bit and piece to start over anew, with a better ratio from ore nodes to production lines and a better overview of everything. Sometimes even starting a brand new playthrough. This is tedious, but to be honest, this is my personal favorite option that I would recommend to new players. When you're at this point, you will eventually start writing down some numbers and do simple calculations to check how many resources are available to you and how you want to process them. Congratulations! The game has successfully made you do math in your free time. This is how it was for me. I always hated math lessons in school. For the most part, I had teachers who had the horrible talent to make mathematics so boring that I just stopped listening. It was just that. Calculations without context. I constantly asked myself, why do I have to learn this nonsense? I do not plan to be a mathematician when I get older. This is a good example on how many kids feel about mathematics. The PISA study, which ranked pupils of different countries in different categories based on a complex system, gave Germany in 2022 a score of 475 in mathematics. This is a 39-point decrease compared to the 2012 test results. If we compare it to some Scandinavian countries like Finland, we will see that pupils are more trained in concepts like mathematics in real-world situations, problem solving, mathematical literacy, and usage of mathematical systems, and therefore are getting overall better test results. This is a whole other topic, but it shows one thing that is very important. If you can make mathematical calculations interesting and demand their usage in a setting where you really want to progress by using them, you will have fun doing math and therefore learn something new. This is exactly what Satisfactory is doing with you. You will create Excel sheets and doing some calculations because at some point you really want to optimize your production. The craziest thing I did for Satisfactory was sitting down for like 3 days just to calculate everything for a setting that could feed 30 nuclear power plants. I just had the game running to check different production lines, but the most important part was me doing calculations with my old calculator from my school days and writing them down. In the end, the entire sheet was over 10,000 characters long, just for the whole setup for 30 nuclear power plants. But I had a ton of fun doing it. And the feeling after turning on every part of the production chain that I built based on my calculations was unimaginably satisfying. To see every machine running and working perfectly is just pure joy. This entire process took me around 150 to 200 hours, but every hour was worth it. But not everything will work perfectly the first time. Analyzing and tweaking existing production chains that are not running on 100% efficiency is also a big part of the game and equally satisfying when you find the mistake you put in. Satisfactory introduced me to a simple game mechanic and an idea, but a very important one. Mathematics can be fun, and I'm very grateful that I can experience this feeling while playing it. Heck, without Satisfactory, I would never have gotten into Kerbal Space Program and calculating things like weight to thrust ratio and accessible delta V for rockets, which is on a whole other level. To combine these things and creating a game that players absolutely love is not an easy task. But Coffee Stain Studios did it. But not without some hiccups on the way. Which brings me to the last topic of today's video. The success of Satisfactory is not just the story of a good game which was put out on the market just to be a quick way to make some money. No, it was an exceptional balance between Coffee Stain's own vision of the game and the feedback of the community. In 2019, the game launched into early access, but only as an Epic Games exclusive launch title. This was highly controversial at the time. There were many accusations from the community. For example, that Coffee Stain Studios only used Steam to advertise their game just to launch it on Epic. At this time, you read terms like scam or false advertising more than once, with critics going so far to call it a fake alpha. There was a reason behind the decision, and this is where I believe the developers pulled up their biggest move. One that should be the standard for every developer. Brutal honesty. In a Q&A video from December 2018, former community manager Jace Valet sat down and answered the questions from the community regarding their Epic Games exclusive launch. To the questions why they went with Epic, Jace said with a little laugh but also a truthful look upon his face,
"Yeah, we got cash money."
He further explained that this money is an insurance for the team to continue working on the game because it's the game they really wanted to create. In this Q&A, he also answered the question if this deal would be a time exclusive and held out the prospect for Satisfactory being released on Steam after 12 months. I think this was a great example of Coffee Stain not being your typical AAA studio that would probably went with a non-saying excuse or with no explanation at all. And their communication and work with the community did not end there. In development and early access, they constantly gathered feedback from the players and adjusted the game to it. Players were an active part of development. If the community disliked the feature, it was no rarity that it was changed or even removed entirely. Balancing and performance optimization always were the first things they worked on because the community wanted it to be high priority. This gave rise to an amazing feeling. We, the players, are not simply playing a game. No, we are actively helping to form the game. Many early access titles are suffering from the same problems. No communication about the status of the game, no developing progress, and broken promises. Take Prison Architect 2 as an example. Its release was first announced to be the 26th of March 2024. At least 3 times there was an announcement for a delay, and as of May 2026 the game still has the status of indefinitely delayed. This creates distrust and anger in a community that is passionate about something. Coffee Stain Studios constantly updated and still updates their community about Satisfactory. Over the years, Jace and Snoot were the faces of the game, and since they stepped down as community managers, Jason and Mikael filled in their roles. Regular videos, Discord, Twitter and Reddit posts, and even the occasional live streams were key to the trust that they've earned from the players. Their videos were humorous, chaotic, filled with memes, self-deprecating, but at the same time full of interesting news regarding the game. This mixture perfectly captured the zeitgeist. But if there were serious topics, they did not try to undermine the concerns or hide bad news. They sat down and told their community what problems they had to face at that moment and why some features needed more work and therefore their release would be delayed. They had nothing to hide, which further increased the players' love for Satisfactory. This whole package is, at least for me, the ideal way to update and include a player base. They understood that community work is an important part for game development. Through their communication and their actions, they gave their community the feeling that they were part of that journey. Well, this concludes my video about Satisfactory. It is truly an amazing game that you really should try out. But if you made it up to this point in the video, you may already did. Thanks to Coffee Stain Studios for creating this awesome piece of art, and also thanks for keep updating it. And thanks to you for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, bye.